Welcome back, everybody. Canberra Football Show, episode 25, round 3 review. Russ is joining me today along with Michael. Russ, glad to have you back. How have you been?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Had a busy week of football, as you know, and we've got a busy week coming up as well. Plenty of action on Bar TV and plenty of football to watch from everybody around Canberra.
Michael, how's it going today?
Yeah, good. We've got some more action to unpack over this sort of long weekend period. Obviously, we had Anzac Day, so still plenty of football that was played. And yeah, we're just looking to break that down as we always do.
All right.
I love how you're shaking it up again with the location, mate. That's some Duna cover you've got in the background.
Yeah, no, this is something that my grandmother picked out for me. So yeah, one of my favorite blankets. That's for sure.
Keeping you warm in the cold Canberra.
Yes,
Anzac Day's come around. We've all got the heating on again.
That's right. So this Duna definitely does the job. I can assure you of that.
All right, on from Dunas to books. Andy Bernal's book, Riding Shotgun, Russ, which you ghostwrited, I believe, is coming out. So what would you like to tell everyone about that?
Yeah, well, what happened with the process was Andy wrote the words and I just massaged them for him and helped him get them across the line and that kind of thing. So we've been working on that for about a year. It is Andy's own words. I was there just to help him along the way, as I said. Comes out tomorrow, launch tomorrow up at Glebe Books in Sydney. We'll have another launch in Canberra as well, a bit later down the track. But I'm sure Andy's super glad to get his story out on actually published. It got it in his hands. I've just seen a picture of it. He just picked one up for the first time, a tangible hard copy, which is always great. We've seen a lot of online stuff, so it's great to see. And it's a fantastic story, and I just recommend it to everybody to go out there and support not only a great football story, but someone from Canberra whose story's been lost a little bit down the track. And I think you talk about great Canberra exports and in terms of football, and you talk about Tommy Roderick and you talk about people of that ilk. But Andy Bernal's right up there. He was the first to do it, first to go to Spain, first to go to the UK. And he's got an amazing story. And the David Beckham assistant part of it is only a small part of it. The rest of it is fantastic. It's a really good read. Highly biased, but recommend you go and buy it right now.
Well, hopefully we're looking forward to have Andy Bernal on the show one day in the future regarding his book and also his experiences with Canberra football. I saw a picture he shared online of him when he was like 14, 15 years old with Narrabundah back in the day before he moved to Spain. So we'll also chat to him about that. And I'm looking forward to chatting to him about being coached by Brian Clough. That's what I'm looking forward to chatting to him about as well.
The Brian Clough story is quite remarkable when you read about it. Andy turns up at Nottingham Forest, not even invited, and he manages to wangle himself a contract. So you make sure you buy the book and read about it because it is quite incredible the way it happens.
That's great.
I'm really looking forward to that one. Michael, let's get started straight into NPL 1.
All right, let's do it.
What is our first matchup?
So we had Tigers FC up against Tuggeranong United in that matchup that was rescheduled. That was meant to be played on the weekend, but it got moved to Thursday night. Obviously, you two commented on that game. What an entertaining game as well. Three apiece for Tigers and Tuggeranong, with Tigers Popovic scoring a double and Timotheo finding the net in the second half. Tuggeranong scorers were Doherty and Slavic and Murray scoring from the penalty spot in the 89th minute to get Tuggeranong United their share of the spoils. Matt, how did this one play out? I know that I mentioned that you two were in the commentary area for this game. It looked like a very entertaining game, that's for sure.
It certainly was. It was a bit of a challenge to commentate on, as Russell will tell you as well. We could barely see our notes. Some of the corners of the pitch were, like from the scaffold, you couldn't really see. So the camera guy had a bit of a tough time in terms of
I saw that.
Corners on that side. So that was interesting. But in terms of the actual game, Tigers seemed to be off to the races to begin with. Once they scored early through Popovic, and then they scored just before half time. But then they just decided to sit back a little bit and just break when they wanted to. That's when Tuggeranong had more of the ball. But first half, they just weren't able to sort of get over the line in terms of getting into the final third. Or when they did, they just weren't able to string that final pass together. But in the second half, though, they came out very different Tuggeranong. It's that old fighting spirit that we keep associating with Tuggeranong United and Mitch Stevens' side with Doherty. I believe Russ has a stat on Doherty when he'll mention soon, Slavic and Murray. Yeah, Tuggeranong just kept fighting back, and then Timotheo scored in the 58th minute. That was probably my favorite goal of the weekend. It was a long range effort from just outside the box, I think, and it was all on the ground, complete power in the bottom corner. So, look, Tuggeranong for me showed a lot of fighting spirit, which is great to see. Tigers, though, they'll be a little disappointed that they didn't get all the 3 points here, considering they conceded a penalty with one of the defenders leaving a foot out for that last penalty. So Tigers will be a little bit disappointed, but Tuggeranong will be very happy with that second half performance. Now they'll be looking to sort of transition that second half performance to starting games like that and not trying to be on the front foot straight away. What do you think about the matchup, Russ?
The second 45 minutes epitomises Tuggeranong's season. If they could bottle their 45 minutes the second half and replicate that in the first half, they'll be at the top of the table. You look at those 45-minute performances against Belconnen, Canberra, Croatia, and against Tigers FC, and they've been very good in the second half. It's just not been great in the first 45. I mentioned to Mitch Stevens in the week, if you watch the second halves of their 3 games in isolation, you'd think they're top of the table. If you watch the first half, you think they're down the bottom. So they need to just be able to get a bit more consistency. The 2 penalties they were awarded, controversial fashion. The second one, Anthony Timotheo scored a really crisp goal, which you mentioned, and he was the one that was penalised twice in the box for the fouls. The second one, very debatable in the last minute as well. Shane Murray with his first touch was never going to miss. He cracked it straight down the middle. It was a great penalty to get a point for his team. But in the end, a draw was probably fair, but Tigers would have thought that having been 2-0 up and 3-1 up, they had enough quality to see that one out. And it might be a bit worrying for Ryan Grogan and his team, the way they let that one slip. And you could see afterwards, some of the players were really shattered. They put the effort in and they hadn't got the full reward out of it, whereas Tuggeranong were very happy with what they got. All in all, very good night's entertainment on Thursday night football at the AIS. And Cam Doherty with his first goal in NPL football in 106 matches. So congratulations to Cam. He said banging them in pre-season. He got 2. One was from the spot. So if that's banging them in, I guess from Cam's point of view, it is. And he should have had a second. He had his penalty saved and Andrew Slavic scored from the rebound. So maybe he's off and running at the races and he'll get double figures by the end of the year. But great at night's entertainment, given the difficulties being able to see what was going on.
Yeah, it was just one of those situations in that matchup. Michael, are you ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it. So we had Canberra, Croatia at home at Deakin Stadium to the West Canberra Wanderers. And what a result for West Canberra Wanderers, sneaking away with a 1-0 victory. The visitors scored in the 49th minute through the penalty spot from Cole in the 49th minute. This is the first time that Canberra, Croatia have tasted defeat for a while, which is absolutely amazing in terms of how they've performed over the last few years, and to eventually be cracked by a team that that no one would have maybe expected them to lose to per se. But it was a fantastic performance from West Canberra. They're playing with real swagger and real confidence at the moment, and that was not the narrative about a year or so ago. But now they're playing some great football. I think Ulysses will be very pleased with how they approached that game, and they took it to Canberra, Croatia. Obviously, I think that Russ, you'll mention that Canberra, Croatia were obviously missing a few players that would feature in the starting lineup. But I mean, it's just the normal case of having to beat what's in front of you, and that's what West Canberra Wanderers had to do. And that's what they did. So it's another great win for them. It's another great away victory for them as well. Obviously, firstly beating Monaro at Riverside, and now to beat to beat Canberra, Croatia away from home as well is a great feat for them. So a very good start to the season for them. I think both sides had a red card each in this contest as well. Russ, a great result for West Canberra Wanderers, but Canberra, Croatia were definitely short-handed.
Yeah, irrespective of the fact that they were missing half a dozen players, it doesn't matter. You play what's put in front of you, as you quite rightly said there. And they played the 11 players that were in the Canberra Croatia shirts at the time, and they've come away with 3 points. If you had told them at the start of the season that they would have got 6 points from away trips to Monaro, Panthers and Canberra, Croatia, I think they would have thought you were a bit mental. But they have a lot of belief in themselves. I mean, we would never have picked that either. And that's why the tips are so askew this year, is that you never would have thought that that was the case. But thoroughly deserved their win. Not only was it their very first win at Deakin Stadium as well, it's the first goal they've scored there since 2013, I think, if I remember rightly. And
Wow.
that was back when they were Woden-Weston, and they've been copping some heavy hidings off of Canberra, Croatia down the years in their various guises. So I think for Woden-Weston, it was about time they got the result. And as you say, they're on a crest of a wave. They put some run together. Thought maybe, the first game of the season when they got beat 4-1, it might put them on the back foot a little bit, but it hasn't. And they've ridden their luck in parts, but so is everybody else in the league. And in the end of the day, they've got themselves a 1-0 win and 3 more points in the bag, and they're sitting pretty on the ladder at the moment. And as you mentioned, just before I popped in here, we talked about predictions off the air and stuff, and you just can't predict anything at the moment.
No, it's as the case proved to be. Me ending up with 0 tips correct this past weekend just really shows how tough the games are and how unpredictable they've proved to be.
You wouldn't have been the only one that ended up with 0 either, I would have thought, mate. I had a look at the fixtures at the start of the weekend, and if at the start of the season you were looking at these round of fixtures and you were looking at Belconnen against Monaro, Olympic versus Gungahlin, Croatia versus Woden, and Tuggeranong versus Tigers, you would have probably gone in, and no one would have said you were mental if you'd gone Tigers, Croatia, Monaro, Gungahlin, and everyone would have gone, yeah, I agree. And not one of those results has come off. It's an incredible statistic, and it's great for the game that there's so many consistent teams in it. We spoke about it during the broadcast and off air afterwards at the Tigers Tuggeranong game. You just got no idea who's going down this season. You've got no idea. You can't pick the results from one week to the next, and it's going to make it extremely interesting as we get towards the pointy end of everything.
Look, Matt, do you have any thoughts on this encounter before we move on at all? Or?
Yeah, I was just very impressed with I was about to say Woden-Weston, with West Canberra Wanderers. Because after their goal, they did go a man down, I believe. So to still keep that sort of, sort of keep that lead, despite being a man down, and we all know, even though they were still missing like 6 or something players, Canberra Croatia still, the rest of their squad's still pretty much quality. So for West Canberra Wanderers, that's a fantastic feat. And we did see last season when they started to win, they started to get on a bit of a roll, and they've got a lot of great confidence about them. When I talked to Ulysses, he said, we're not happy with our perception being, the underdogs, but the only way we can change that is by getting results, and getting results against the likes of Monaro and the reigning champions of Canberra Croatia. If they keep up these sort of, performances, these sort of victories, I think they're going to change some perceptions before the end of the season. But he'll be the first. He'll also be the first to tell you that it's still very much a long way to go in this season.
Gabe Cole was sent off within 30 seconds of scoring the winning goal from the penalty spot for a gesture to the crowd, which brings a whole different complexion to the conversation about how much abuse you take as a player before you gesture back and you get yourself into trouble, yet nothing's done to all the words that are said to you in the first instance. So it's not something we like to see either way, to be honest, but I feel for him a little bit. I feel that there would have been a lot of a release of pent-up tension and aggression when he scored that goal. So I can understand the reaction in some respects, but I think that was a fairly draconian decision by the referee to send him off. Maybe a quiet word might have been better. However, that's the letter of the law, and the officials were doing what they have to do.
It's one of those situations where you've even seen it in the professional game as well. There's plenty of situations like that, and it's something everyone talks about in that regard. All right, Michael, next up, we've got Belconnen United defeating Monaro Panthers 2-1 at home. McCaw and Mickle with the goals, and Ahmed Shaibu with the goal for Monaro Panthers. How did this one play out?
Yeah, so Belconnen United, the hosts, continued their great start to the year with a home win against Monaro. Monaro slumped to 3 straight defeats. They're sitting bottom of the NPL1 competition table. And Matt, we talked about prior about some great goals that were scored in the LPL1. We mentioned Timotheo prior, but I mean, there was a fantastic goal scored by Mikkel there in the second half. The left foot strike from outside the area, finding its way to the top corner. I was looking at that, thinking what a wonderful strike that was, just to get it on his left side and really let rip to find the back of the net. So that was another fantastic goal that we've seen in the NPL one competition. So I mean, they're just continuing to make strides. This Belconnen United team, they've started the season well. They've picked up some great results, and that's only going to stead them well for the rest of the season as they look to obviously continue the foundation of what they've produced so far in these first 3 games, which is they're playing with a lot of confidence. They've got some great young players mixed with some great veterans, and they're just going to look to continue that. Whereas on the other side, there's a bit of concern now around Monaro and the form that they've displayed. You know, they're the only side in the NPL one with no points next to their name. Obviously, this is going to raise some question marks and some concerns. It certainly doesn't get any easier for them as well when they play Canberra, Croatia next week. And you can be rest assured that Canberra, Croatia is going to want to bounce back big time after losing at home to West Canberra, like we just discussed earlier. So it's a bit of worrying times for Monaro. Russ, would you agree with that? Is it too early to be worrying, or I only just say that because obviously they've got no points to start the season, and their fixture list doesn't get any easier, like I mentioned, when they've got Canberra, Croatia next up in their 4th game of the year. So is it sort of valid to sort of raise these concerns, or have they've obviously still got time to turn this around as well?
Yeah, look, it's a valid point you make. I mean, you don't want to be 0-3 and with 0 points at the bottom of the table. However, they'll look at it that there's 3 rounds in, they're 6 points off the top 4. So they're not really out of it because everybody keeps beating everybody else. And I think as long as those results continue to happen, they'll call themselves back into it because I think they're too good not to. Their squad's too good. On the weekend, they were punished for some lax defending by 2 absolutely cracking goals from Luca McCaw and Leon Mikkel. The second one in particular, as you mentioned, was outstanding. But Luca McCaw's goal was great as well. But they will be a bit disappointed with the way, again, their only goals come from the penalty spot. That's the second time. They haven't scored a goal from open play since half an hour in round 1, which is a fair amount of time for a team of that quality. Yeah, they were missing players as well. Stephen Dominici, Tim Bobolas, Jeremy Appleton suspended. So they were missing players as well, as were Belconnen. They were missing a few through injury too. So would they be worried? Yeah, I think they would be a little bit worried. Would they be overly concerned that it's going to get worse? I don't think so, but it does put an awful lot of pressure on their FFA Cup match midweek now against Wagga City Wanderers. It's important that they come out there and get a result and play well heading into the game against Canberra, Croatia. Fortunately, they might get Canberra, Croatia at a bad time, but I wouldn't put it past them getting a result against Canberra, Croatia at the Riverside on the weekend. They're just that kind of football team. But it starts this Wednesday, and they've got to get a result against Wagga. If they lose that against a team that's bottom of NPL2 that hasn't scored a goal themselves in 3 matches, as unlikely as it would be, if they came out at the back of that with a defeat, you'd have to worry for them ahead of the weekend. But if they can get a good result under their belts, you'd think, well, take that momentum into the weekend's game against Canberra, Croatia. Anything can happen. Look, we could be sat here next week talking about them having beaten the champions and closed the gap to Croatia to 3 points. And that's nothing in a 21-round season. Most
definitely. Matt, do you have any aspects of this match that you would like to discuss? I mean, we've talked about some key points that transpired. Obviously, they're in a little bit of a concerning spot, but like Russ mentioned, there's still plenty of games to play, and they can turn it around quickly, and that starts with the FFA Cup encounter. So, what are your thoughts and feelings in regards to Monaro and on the other side of that, Belconnen, who have had a good start as well?
Yeah, Russ mentioned the lax defending there. I thought Belconnen, if you like, when you watch both those goals, they're just very quick counterattacks. Immediately, straight away, they're attacking, using all that pace and that youth that they've got through the McCaws, through Flores, through Piccolo, through the likes of these players. And that Mikkel goal, I'll say it as well, absolutely fantastic and great run as well to create that one. and they were very quick counterattacks. And it looks like a lot of teams are starting to do this, or have done this. I shouldn't say starting, it hasn't been that many games, but in the last couple of games, have done this to Monaro. I do think it will be concerning considering if they do lose to Canberra, Croatia, that's 4 in a row, and then everyone's naturally going to start asking questions. But then I think, let's just say if they don't do well against Canberra, Croatia, then you've got Gungahlin after that. And we've seen 50-50 from Gungahlin. We've seen very good performances like we saw in the second half against Olympic, like we'll mention very soon. But yeah, if they go, like if you go 4-0 and then you're heading into that match against Gungahlin, and it could be the possibility 5, then I think that's when everyone might just start dropping their heads. So I think for Monaro against Canberra, Croatia, like we're going to mention very soon, they need to get on the board early and not put themselves in a position where they need to sort of fight back, because the last 2 matches they haven't been able to fight back completely from being down. So yeah,
what I mean by lax defending when I'm talking about the 2 goals, I'm not talking about the quality of the strikes, which are outstanding, and the quality of the individual ability. What I'm talking about is when you lose the ball in that kind of area, the effort that your players put in to get back and make it more difficult for those players to get those strikes away is quite telling. And I think Frank would have been disappointed with the reaction to his outfield players when they coughed up that ball to be able to get back. I mean, again, take nothing away from the strikes, 2 outstanding goals. And take nothing away from Belconnen, who are playing some good football at the moment. Fab's got that team playing really well. They've got some points on the board too. And another contender as well.
And Michael, before you mention the next one, I should also say for Belconnen, it's a good bounce back victory as well after losing 3-0 to Canberra Olympic last week. So Michael, what is the next and last matchup for NPL 1 round 3?
Yep. So we had Canberra Olympic play host to Gungahlin United in another great encounter for NPL 1 football. It ended in a 2-2 draw. Olympics scorers were James with a double, and for Gungahlin, John and Bernardo Madrid scoring 2 goals there in the space of 3 minutes. So Gungahlin United coming back from 2-0 down to get a share of the spoils. Obviously, they did well to fight back to leave with at least a point. Matt, how did this one play out? Because we've talked about how great Olympic have proven to be so far this season with the performances that they've put in. They'll be a little bit disappointed, obviously, being 2-0 up and wanting to see that one out to get the 3 points. But credit must also go to Gungahlin United for the way that they bounced back.
Yeah, 100%. I thought Olympic started the better of the 2 sides. Not only did they score early, but they looked pretty comfortable in the way they were playing. And I'm sure Russell mentioned soon, but there was a penalty that they missed with the Hegi in the first half. And Russ mentioned on commentary that they might come back to bite them in terms of, Gungahlin and they're making a comeback. And it turns out it did, but we can only say that in hindsight, of course. We can't say that completely at the time, which is also what we said on commentary. But in general, yeah, Olympic looked very comfortable until Gungahlin came out in that second half. Near the end of the first half, we saw Gungahlin starting to string passes in the final third. But every time before that they got in the final third, either the ball was too far, like there was too much, the ball was too heavy, whether it was trying to ball to a feet or a cross, or it just didn't work out for them. But the second half, we saw a very after that penalty goal from Olympic, we saw a very different Gungahlin United. This is probably the Gungahlin United that everyone's used to over the last couple of years. And I'm sure Marcel would have had some choice words for the team at halftime, because they came out a very, very different team and they looked very impressive. And once they got started, you thought it was going to be more than what they ended up scoring. Ethan Stamatis did very well to straight after that strike get his team back into it with a shot at Christus, and then John put through the scraps at the end in a very good position, and then Bernardo Madrid also scoring. But yeah, for Gungahlin, we saw a very different side in that second half. And if they can start games like that, like I'm sure that like they did against West Canberra Wanderers, but if they can start games like that most of the season, I think they'll find themselves at the top, around the top, of the top 4, like we've seen in the previous few years. But yeah, for them, it's about sort of finding that balance and starting matches like they started the second half. Russ?
Yeah, for 53 minutes, it felt very much like I was watching a replay of the Canberra Olympic Belconnen match. Olympic rode their luck a little bit in the first half. Christus made a couple of good saves from Misko Namoski to keep them in front after Alan James had scored. Isetro Hegi on his 100th appearance in the NPL missed a penalty to make it 2-0, which would have given them that cushion. Crucially, though, when they did get the second penalty and James scored again, that's 3-2 for him now. He missed the game against Belconnen and he was unavailable, but he's been a great acquisition for them, a good find for them in the middle of the park. The key moment in the game was Gungahlin scoring straight away. They scored within about 30 or 35 seconds of going 2-0 down with, you mentioned, Michael John's goal, and that was key. Felipe Bernardo Madrid's equaliser after that really hurt Olympic, and Gungahlin finished stronger and perhaps could have won it. Bernardo Madrid hit the bar. Moses Garang put one over the top of the crossbar when he was well placed as well. Hindsight, we mentioned, is a wonderful thing. Again, you look at that 3 minutes of football. Canberra Olympic were 2-0 up. They were on 9 points. They were top of the table, 3 from 3. They were pegged back. They got a point out of it, which is a good point in the end. I think they would probably been happy with the point from the start. However, will they look back at that moment, those 3 minutes in 5 or 6 weeks' time, and go, the momentum's been lost a bit? It's really how they recover now and how they react to that. To their credit, they didn't crumble and they got a point out of the game, but they're a lot of young boys. Robbie and Alex Castro have got them really well drilled. And it will be their reaction to a disappointing game for them, having had that points in the bag. For Gungahlin, as you said, Marcel Munoz would have been frustrated in the first half. They played some good football. There was lack of penetration, though, really in the final third. When they've got the quality of the 3 players they've got up front in Namoski, Bernardo Madrid and John, you'd expect a bit more. Again, they're a work in progress. They've lost Jack Green for the season. We think he's fractured and displaced his tibia. Looks quite bad from his point of view, carried off against the Tigers. And Buddy Abbas was suspended as well. So he'll come back in, but the loss of Green is big. Now they need their bigger players, their more experienced players like Bernard Rene, who's come in, he's closing in on 100 appearances himself. It's important now that he stands up, and where they go from here will depend on, their season. It could be defining. Those 3 minutes, though, huge for both clubs.
Most definitely. I think just before we get into predictions, that sort of absence of real veteran leadership will play a massive factor in Gungahllin's season. But like you mentioned, there are replacements there that can come in for the place of Jack Green, and hopefully they're able to do a good job to sort of steer the ship as they look to push, obviously, for the top 4. Just mainly the top 4 in the title. Sorry, that's what I was trying to get at. But let's get into the round 4 predictions, Matt. Obviously, I'm looking. Before
we do, let's just give a shout out to Jack if he's listening or watching, and wish him all the best in his recovery. Not only is he one of the best footballers in Canberra, really nice bloke as well. I have hit him up already to see if he might join us in commentary at some stage a bit later on when he starts to recover. So we may hear a bit more from Jack, but all the best in the recovery.
Fantastic. Hopefully he takes upon that opportunity. It'd be good to have him behind the mic because, like you said, he's a great guy and he's a great footballer as well. Very knowledgeable. Let's get into it, Matt. Like I said, I need to improve upon the perfect 0 that I scored in round 3. We've got obviously
not going to be too hard to improve, is it?
Yeah. Well, who knows? Might end up with 0 again, but I don't think I think I'll be a bit more luckier this time around. We've got West Canberra Wanderers up against Canberra Olympic at Melrose Synthetic Saturday, May 1st at that lunchtime kickoff at around 12:45 p.m. I'm just looking actually at the list, the fixture list here. It's actually a pretty tough round again. To actually pick.
They're all tough. I think this is going to be tricky for you guys again, which is why I don't do predictions. You guys do it.
I think I'm actually going to go for a West Canberra Wanderers win. I think the confidence that they would have gained from that result, beating the defending champions in Canberra, Croatia, has done them the world of good. It'll help them develop and play even better going forward into the season. I think it's a great result for them. I mentioned that they've played really well away from home, but obviously they lost to Gungahlin United to start this campaign, but they'll be looking to rectify that and get their first home win of the season. So I'm going to go for a West Canberra Wanderers win on the back of that that performance that they showcased, albeit that Canberra Croatia were short in terms of their main players that were absent from that encounter. But I think this team's got a lot of confidence at the moment, and I expect them to carry that over into the game against Canberra Olympic. It'll be a very close encounter, but I'm going to go for a Wanderers win.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a draw because West Canberra Wanderers, like you mentioned, the confidence and just the way they're playing at the moment is very positive for them. But it's not like Olympic haven't been playing similar to that. We mentioned the first half, how comfortable they were against Gungahlin and how much they controlled their portion of the game. I don't think there's a lot separating both the confidence of these sides at the moment, both very young sides as well. So I'm going to go for a draw in this one. Any comments on the match?
I'll tell you what, if West Canberra win, you wouldn't be surprised. If Olympic win, you wouldn't be surprised. If it is a draw, you wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's got all the hallmarks of being a really good football match, to be honest, between two sides that are really in form. And it should be a good watch. The synthetic will mean the ball will fizz about a bit. There's two young sides as well, so they'll put a lot of effort and determination into it. And yeah, it's going to be a cracker. It'll be a good way to start the weekend.
Absolutely. Moving on to the next encounter, it's Belconnen United at home to Tigers FC. Also Saturday, May 1st, 3 p.m. at McKellar Park. Another very, very tough game to pick. I'm going to go for a Belconnen United win at home. I think, like I mentioned, they have had a good start to the season. They've put in some great performances. It'll obviously be a tricky prospect given the fact that Tigers are a quality side. Even though they gave up that 2-goal lead against Tuggeranong United, they'll be eager to get back and rectify that by getting 3 points against Belconnen United. But I think the fact that the Belconnen will be at home again in front of the McKellar Park crowd will do them a world of good. It'll be another close game, but I expect them to pip it. So I'm going to go for Belconnen United. What about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Tigers victory. Like you said, at this point, it's a matter of throwing a dart at a dartboard at this point in time. That's how much there is separating a lot of the sides at the moment. But Tigers, I think they're going to be they would have been quite disappointed with, conceding a penalty in the last, couple of minutes of that matchup when they seemed like they were pretty much going to take the 3 points home. So I think they're going to be raring to go, and they did have a little bit of an extra break in that regard, considering they played on Thursday. That always comes into it as well. I'm going to go with the Tigers victory, but don't be surprised of anything like we've got going forward. But I think there might be quite a few goals in this matchup. For me, if Tigers score early, though, I want to see what is going to be Belconnen's response, because we saw against Canberra Olympic once they scored, Belconnen United just couldn't get back into the game despite how many numbers they threw forward. So if Tigers score early, which they have in the last couple of games, I'm intrigued to see how Belconnen United respond. Russ, any
ditto what I said to the previous game. I mean, all three results wouldn't be a surprise. What that does happen between these two teams is there's generally not a lot between them in terms of the final result. So if there is a winner, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the odd goal in say 3 or 5 or something like that. Because you just can't pick it between the two. There's goals at both ends. They defend quite well. It's going to be another good game. And, they're really well spaced out, these matches on the weekend, so you can actually tune in and watch all three.
Absolutely. You've got the times there of 12:45, 3 p.m. and 5:30. So that's basically your Saturday night sorted, or your Saturday afternoon/night. So plenty of NPL1 action on Saturday. And that brings us to our third and final game on the Saturday, May 1st, 5:30 at Riverside Stadium. We've got Monaro Panthers up against Canberra, Croatia. We talked about how big of a game this is going to be for Monaro on the back of their FFA Cup encounter. I'm going to go for a Canberra, Croatia win. I think obviously they're going to have those players back. I think they had around 6 players that were absent from that West Canberra Wanderers encounter that they lost. But to have those players back in the squad this weekend against Monaro Panthers, when Canberra Croatia is at full strength, they're the best side in the competition. but they'll be playing against a very resilient Monaro Panthers team who are desperate to get their season up and running. So again, it's going to be another very close game to call. But I'm edging towards a Canberra-Croatia win at Riverside Stadium. What about yourself, Matt?
All right, I'm going for a Canberra-Croatia victory here, mostly because, like you mentioned, all the players are back. But for me, when you saw sort of the Monaro's response to those counterattacks, and let's not forget how much pace Canberra-Croatia have in their attacks as well. I just don't think the defense will be able to handle Croatia at that sort of level, especially considering they did lose and they're going to be raring to go. But in saying that, though, if Monaro score early, they could put themselves in a different position. I think if they score early against Croatia, it'll be different to when they scored early against Olympic. They're not going to take it for granted, and they're going to push for another goal. So yeah, I'm going to go for a Croatia victory, but it's going to be interesting. But like I said, this is a must-win for Monaro, in my opinion. Before we head into the next one, Michael, I'll introduce that one only because Russ has just told me a change of times and venues for that last one. But any comments on Canberra-Croatia, Russ and Monaro?
It's our match of the round on Bar TV Sports. I'll be joined by Andy Burnell, in fact, for that one from 5:30 at the Riverside Stadium, which will be an absolute corker. We mentioned the fact that Monaro have a midweek FFA Cup game, but so do Canberra-Croatia. They play Belconnen United at Deakin Stadium, and that one has a potential to go all the way. So depending on how the teams recover are going to have a huge impact on this game as well. Looking at it on paper, you'd expect the Panthers to be more rested in terms of the fact that they shouldn't be pushed as hard as by Wagga City as Canberra-Croatia will be by Belconnen. However, we just don't know. Untimely injury there, here or there, extra time, who knows? So that's going to have an effect on the game as well. But I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be a really good end to Saturday night, and there's going to be plenty of goals, I think.
I'm really looking forward to that matchup. So next up, we have Tuggeranong United and Gungahlin United, Tuesday, 4th of May, to be confirmed. This is, of course, because Tuggeranong United are going to be travelling in the FFA Cup to Griffith on Friday night, and Russ will be making the trip as well, which he'll mention shortly. Before I knew about that, I was thinking how are Tuggeranong going to sort of cope, probably coming back on Saturday, and then if they're pushed, there's only not a lot of time for rest when you think about it, considering the long trip. But since the match will be pushed back now, I'm going to go for a draw. Gungahlin looked very good, but we have seen the fighting resilience from Tuggeranong United, and when Tuggeranong United start to pick up a point or a win, they start to find themselves in a different sort of position. But if Gungahlin can come out on the front foot, it's a very different team. But Gungahlin's situation has been they need to try and play like that for closer to 90 minutes. I'm going to go for a draw here. It's going to be a very, very interesting matchup, but it's going to be interesting to see. But any sort of situation can be on the cards. So we'll see how this one goes. Michael, you?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Gungahlin United away win there. I know that we touched on the absence of, Jack Green and him potentially being out for the rest of the season. And obviously that's going to impact Gungahlin United, but they do have the players that can, step up and do a job to the best of their ability to fill that void in a way. They definitely have the quality going forward. Whilst they maybe haven't put it together for a whole 90 minutes yet, they definitely have the players and the squad to be able to do that over a period of time. And I think that they're just sort of in the phase at the moment where they're still looking to piece it together, find their best starting 11 that will help them just, collect 3 points after 3 points after 3 points. So I think that can start this weekend when they play Tuggeranong United. So I expect an away win there for them.
Yeah, the game to be confirmed. That was our Sunday afternoon offering in the NPL, so we'll be covering that. I'm told it's going to be Tuesday, venue to be confirmed at the moment. I'm going to make you feel very happy about your prediction right now, Michael, because Gungahlin United in the history of the NPL have never, ever won an away match against Tuggeranong United, believe it or not. Every match they've played since they've come in the competition away to Tuggeranong, they've lost. Conversely, they've won every home one. I think.
Yeah.
They've never. If they are to win away at Tuggeranong on the weekend, they'll create a little bit of history in the process as well. So, fingers crossed for you on that one.
Hey,
Yeah,
what can I say? History is there to be broken.
Now on to NPLW. First game over the weekend. Course of action was Canberra Olympic at home to Belconnen United. Belconnen United proved to be too strong, too good for the Olympic outfit, winning 5-0. Goals for Jolocha, Backhouse with a double, and Ryan as well as Thornton in the 84th minute. So another convincing performance by Belconnen United, who look tremendous so far this season. Matt, how did you see this contest playing out?
Look, I thought Belconnen were really, really good, especially in the first half. But if I've also been told, like I've seen the match back, but I've told by people who have been who watched that game live at a nice 10:30 early in the morning kickoff, that the score line was a bit harsh for Canberra Olympic, is what I was told. That was mostly due to their second half performance. But I think what Belconnen do really well is they start the game absolutely out. They're out of the gates, immediately out of the gates, and they try and end the game as quick as they can. Which so eventually in the second half, if a team does sort of come back, the game's mostly dead and buried by that point. And except this one, so this one they're already 3-0 up. Well, you can always have by a halftime. You can always but you can always come back from 3-0 down. But the last couple of weeks, Olympic have been. Like last week, for example, Belco were already up 5-0 or 5-1 at halftime. So what they're trying to do is kill the game early as quick as they can in that regard. But there were some positive moments for Olympic. They did create some good chances. But I think for Olympic, like we mentioned last week, it's still all about just getting all the elements together, Michael. I know Heather Garrick, I think, played a little bit as well, which is, we all know Heather Garrick and her time as a player and also coaching Canberra United. And they've also signed, I believe, Tiana Miro from Gungahlin United. So, and let's not forget, they've got Brand Vanderbroek, they've got DeAndrade, and these are all new players to the team as well. Ashley Sykes came back. And they've just got a lot of new players and a lot of quality. So for me, it's all about just mixing in at the right moment, and eventually it's going to click for Canberra Olympic. Unfortunately for them, they're playing Canberra Croatia this weekend, but it is a derby, so I'm sure they'll be up for it. But eventually it will click. And when they do start to click, I think we're going to see very, very positive things from Canberra Olympic. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Michael, before we move on?
Yeah, I think before we move on, I think it'd be good just to mention a good quote from Jeremy in his commentary in his NPLW wrap this week on this matchup in particular. So what he said was, and I quote, "The 5-0 scoreline, although looking harsh, reflected well on Belconnen's ability to make the most of their opponents' hesitation, as well as their serious step up defensively with a first clean sheet of the season for Esposito." So very positive signs for Belconnen United. Sorry, like I mentioned at the top. A great showing. That's the sort of performance that you want to be putting in away from home. So kudos to them. Like I said, they've had a great start to the season, and I think that's only going to set to continue.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the clean sheet. That's very positive. And I've seen Mikey mention sort of even in interviews that he still wants to keep a clean sheet. He's still not happy when they only concede one goal. So good on them to keep a clean sheet. And it's also a good reflection of how well Esposito has turned in as goalkeeper there at Belconnen United. And we move on to the next team, Michael. We have Canberra United Academy, who defeated West Canberra Wanderers 2-1. Hunt and Perry with the goals for CUA, and Letton with the goal for West Canberra Wanderers. Good bounce back victory for United after that heavy loss to Belconnen last week. Michael, how did this one play out?
Yeah, I think it was great sort of resilience shown from Canberra United Academy to come back after that devastating loss they underwent at the hands of Belconnen United last weekend, especially to be 1-0 down in this encounter as well. It really called on their ability to put that behind them to come back to try and get a victory, in which they ultimately did with goals from Hunt and Perry, like you mentioned. So it's a great result for them in the context that they had a bad defeat last week and they've come back and got the 3 points this time around. So it's a fantastic result for them. Their dominance of possession early, reaped rewards with a brilliant ball over the top from Zachman to Anna Hunt, who used fantastic technique to position herself to get the first goal. West Canberra Wanderers have yet to find their first points of the campaign. With the return of Tiana Jaber in defence, they looked more solid at the back, so that's always a positive sign going forward, even though there is the negative sort of surrounding the team at the moment with no points from their games played so far. But I think to have personalities come back into the team that are going to make them more solid and stronger will build the foundation for them to get better as the season goes on. So that's a positive sign, at least for the visiting team. They did show what they can do when everything clicks for them. Their break on the counter, caught out the academy, and that's where Ledden was able to exploit and get the first goal of the game. So I think it was good resilience shown by Canberra United Academy to come back and win this game, which I think they needed to after that big defeat last week. It's always important to come back and essentially put in a strong performance to make up for the fact that you didn't have a great result last week. It's always important that you come back out and sort of prove those doubters wrong and come back to win the game in the way that they did as well, to go behind and to come back and win. So it's a great result for Canberra United Academy. And even though West Canberra Wanderers don't walk away with anything from this game, like I mentioned, there's foundations for them to now build on for the remaining games of the season, and it gives them a bit of time to formulate around those players so that they can eventually build a bit of form.
Yeah, and when I saw the goals as well, like Letton's goal, it sort of looked like a bit of a sneaky chip. But in saying that, though, Jeremy mentioned it as a cross slash shot. But whenever those work out, they sort of work out the best because they're the ones that the goalies aren't really anticipating in that regard. And also shout out to Anna Hunt and her goal. I thought that was it was a terrific ball over the top from Zachman, and I really thought that was great precision and great control, and the way she turned around that defender was really, really well done from her. But CUA, like you said, this is very important for them to bounce back after last week. And West Canberra Wanderers, like you said, still waiting for those last few points, but still waiting to get their first few points, but eventually will all click for them. Like you said, Tiana Jaber, really good sign in their defense. And once everyone starts clicking, remember they got a lot of new players as well. So once they start clicking, I'm sure it will improve for West Canberra Wanderers. All right, Michael, what is our next matchup?
So our next matchup, our third matchup over the weekend for NPLW is Tuggeranong United at home to Canberra, Croatia. Canberra, Croatia proved far too strong. Another dominant display by an away team in the NPLW this past weekend, with Canberra, Croatia winning 6-0. Goal scorers for the visitors were Fogarty, Gill, Jones with a double, Bissett, and Juna in the 92nd minute. So we had 4 goals there after the 80th minute mark. So I guess we can take a lot of positives out of that performance for Tuggeranong United to put up the display that they did for that first 80 minutes or so before it eventually got away for them. So whether that was due to fatigue or mentality, I mean, they showed a great courage and display to stay in contention with a side of the quality that Canberra, Croatia possesses. So I think they can take a lot of positives out of that game. Matt, how did you see this one play out? Obviously a big win for Canberra, Croatia, but there's got to be some positive signs there for Tuggeranong, who, they were in that game right up until the 80th minute mark.
Look, yeah, they always knew this game was going to be difficult for them, and Stair Mitchell essentially set them up, so they would be hard to break down, because as we all know, when you give all those players at Canberra, Croatia even a little bit of space, they're immediately going to punish you. So, they did. Canberra, Croatia had more chances than just the 2 goals they scored in the first half, but you could really tell that they really, Tuggeranong United, everyone worked for each other. They really set up and they set themselves up perfectly to at least defend. Now, maybe they didn't get as many chances as they would have liked on goal, but at the end of the day, Tuggeranong would have just come into this match thinking, all right, we just need a positive performance here. And at the end of the day, 4 out of those 6 goals were scored in the last 10 minutes. So they showed a real, like you said, a real courage, a real determination, a resilient defensive performance from Tuggeranong. In the end, it wasn't meant to be, but there's no shame in losing in Canberra, Croatia 6-0. They're the reigning champions for a reason. It was good to see Bella Barrett get a start as well today. Grace Gill starting again. She scored a good goal. Chantel Jones again but this time she scored 2 goals as well. She's really been proving to be a good signing for the club. Fogarty, you mentioned her. Once again, she was a new signing this season, and Juna also scored her first NPLW senior goal, I believe, with that goal in the last dying minutes of the match. So for Canberra, Croatia, I heard Jeremy and Russ mentioned on commentary as well that it is important for teams like Canberra, Croatia and Gungahlin United to sort of get the goal difference up, because considering how close it is this season between especially the top 3 sides, it might come down to goal difference. So I think this is, so I thought that was pretty important. And as you're going to mention with the Gungahlin match, they're also scoring more goals as well this season. So I think it's important for these teams to sort of convert their chances, get as many as they can, because if it comes down to goal difference, that could be the difference between the minor premiership. But we'll wait and see next week with some of the big matchups we have, which we'll discuss very soon. But yeah, and Tuggeranong is still yet to announce the NPLW coach. Hopefully for them, that'll be announced soon within the next couple of weeks. All right, Michael, next matchup, Wagga City Wanderers, Gungahlin United. Very, very impressive performance from Gungahlin United, 4-0. Jade Brown, Stella DeMarco with 2 goals, and Pennyfield with the other goal. If you're watching on Bar TV, you might have thought the Wagga were winning if you didn't know any of the players on the pitch, because they had Wagga winning when it went up. So it wasn't the best day at the office for them, but regardless, that was Gungahlin United that were winning that matchup. And it was just a good away performance, wasn't it, Michael?
Yeah, most definitely. I think just to touch on what you mentioned there about, so there was a bit of a glitch in the Bar TV sort of sport.
Yeah. So
scorecard or scoreboard area of the Bar TV coverage. So whenever Gungahlin United were scoring, it was actually coming up as Wagga scoring the goal.
Yeah, and even the highlights, unfortunately for that match, every single highlight you looked at, even the ones on Bar TV goals, because it's an automatic thing, it just came up with like Wagga City have scored. They might have edited it now, but at the time, so Wagga City have scored, and then it would show Gungahlin celebrating. It didn't even have the goals, so
yeah. No, that's all right. So like you said, it was a very good away performance from Gungahlin United. Obviously, being in Wagga, they look very confident. And they have been looking confident so far this season. They're probably in and around that, 3 teams that are competing for the NPLW title this season. They've been fantastic to start the year. So far, they're scoring a lot more goals than they did last season, which is a positive aspect, I think, to raise in 8 games. Last season, they scored 18 goals. And so far, they've already scored 11 in just 3 games. So they're on course to obviously overtake that feat of, 18 goals in 8 league games last year. So I'm sure Diego will be very pleased being the coach with that. I'm sure he would have wanted his girls to play a bit more or develop more of a forward playing approach where they're creating more chances in order to score more goals. And I think that's paying dividends, obviously, by scoring 11 goals in their first 3 games. So that's great for Gungahlin United. They scored some great goals as well, and players, especially Erica Pennyfield's strike. The DeMarco sisters once again were connecting, which is always great to see, which set up Stella for a brilliant goal in that game as well. So it's good to see that the sisters were linking up yet again. They're great players. So I I think in order for this team to do well, they have those sort of connections all over the pitch that make them a very tough side to beat, and they're able to develop sort of different connections on the field, which make them a great team. And how they've developed over the years, which we've talked about numerous times, is really shining through. This could be a very, very big season for Gungahlin United. On the other side of the equation, it's a tough day at the office for Wagga City Wanderers. They attacked well with intent, but Gungahlin were just too solid defensively for them on the day. So I think Diego will obviously be very, very pleased with the 4 goals, but also the clean sheet that he was able to attain as well. So they put in a very satisfying attacking performance, and they were very solid at the back. So not too many complaints there for Gungahlin United. But for Wagga City Wanderers, it'll be a tough pill to swallow. You never like, copping a loss at home, but not even to score a goal at home as well. It stings that a little bit more. But it'll all be about how they bounce back next week. So it'll be a tough challenge, but I'm sure it'll be something that they'll look to rectify, as normally any team does when they suffer a big loss at home or even away. But it's always important that you want to come back the next week stronger and put your best foot forward to get the result that you actually want.
Yeah, and for me, you mentioned how Gungahlin have scored quite a bit of goals this season, and quite a lot compared to what they scored in 8 games last season in 3 games. Not only are they creating more chances, it's not like they never created chances. For me, it's just that Gungahlin, they've just been a lot more efficient this season, which is great to see, because that was probably one thing, if you talk to Diego, or if you talk to anyone about Gungahlin last season, that would probably be the one issue. Like they're just not as efficient. They were pretty strong defensively last season as well. So it's good to see they're still sticking with that strong defense, despite not having Desadou at the back anymore. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting to see today, like Stella played a little further up the field. Steffi Legions played a little further up the field as well. Erica Pennyfield played a little further back, and her goal was from outside the box once again. She knows how to score them from outside the box. We've seen quite a few this week again. Some great outside the field boxes. We'll mention a few more in NPL1 as well. And there was a great one as well at O'Connor. I just think that's fantastic from Gungahlin United. On to the NPLW predictions for this week. Michael, we're starting with Canberra, Croatia, Canberra Olympic. Saturday, May 1st, 4:50 p.m. at Deakin Stadium. It's for Canberra Olympic. They're going to be looking to have an improvement in terms of their performance compared to Belconnen United. Even though they were well in part, they did still concede 5 goals. So for them, they're going to be looking this week, I'm sure, to sort of shore up the defense where they can. But we all know that can be difficult against Canberra, Croatia. Look, Canberra, Croatia just looked too good for me over the last couple of weeks. But it's a derby. Olympic always show up for the derby, even if they're not the favourites. So I wouldn't be surprised if Canberra Olympic put in a good performance or could even snag a draw, but I'm going to say Canberra Croatia. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Canberra Croatia win at home as well. I think just ultimately they'll be too strong for Canberra Olympic. It's a tough ask for Olympic to then play, Belconnen United one week and then the next Canberra Croatia. You're playing the 2 premier teams in the competition in back-to-back weeks, which is tough. But like you said, I think they'll put in a resilient performance. They're a great side that have improved over time. They might be able to snag a draw. You never know. But I think just on the basis of how both teams have played so far this season, and Canberra Croatia obviously getting a big win at the weekend, I expect them to continue that over. So Canberra Croatia win.
All right. And next up, we've got West Canberra Wanderers, Wagga City Wanderers, Sunday, May 2nd, 12:45 at Melrose Synthetic. I'm going to go for a West Canberra Wanderers victory here. This is a very tough one to call. West Canberra Wanderers still yet to find their first points of the season, but they did show some positive signs in the first round and this most previous round. And Wagga City are going to be coming back from that defeat to Gungahlin United. So for me, I'm going to go for West Canberra, but this one I think is going to be a close one. Michael?
I think this one could be a draw. I'm going to go for a draw in this game. I expect it to be a cagey affair, not too much going to separate either side. So yeah, I think that this one's going to play out to be a draw. I don't really see either team coming out with the victory there. And like you mentioned, West Canberra Wanderers looking to seek victory. I'm not sure if they'll do it this week, but either side definitely has the ability to just pip it and win. But I'm just going to go for a draw on this one.
All right. And the big one, Gungahlin United, Belconnen United, Sunday, May 2nd, 3 p.m. at Gungahlin enclosed. Look, I'm just going to sit on the fence for this one, not because that's the easy choice, but because both have just looked so good. Both have looked pretty strong defensively, haven't really conceded much. Both have scored a lot. I know Belconnen have scored more. But when it comes to the big games, Gungahlin proved last season that they've matured as a team when they show up for these big games. And I know they played each other in pre-season, but yeah, I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I think it'll be a very, very close affair. It could be a lot of goals, could be not a lot of goals. It's just one of those, one of those matches that's turning into a really good rivalry in NPLW. And yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot separating these sides. Michael?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think it's definitely going to be a tough game. Gungahlin United have matured so much over the years, and they've built a really great squad in comparison with Belconnen United, who obviously have a fantastic team. I'm going to go for a Belconnen United win, just on the fact that I know both teams have been playing really well this year, but the form of Belconnen United has been very scary at times, and they look like unbeatable. So I think on that basis and the confidence that they'll have, and the amount of big games that they've played over the years that have led to fantastic title winning teams, I expect that to carry over in this tough encounter. I don't expect them to blow Gungahlin United out the water. I think it'll be a great game to watch, actually. But yeah, I'm going to go for a Belconnen United away victory.
All right. And the final matchup, CUA versus Tuggeranong, Sunday, May 2nd, 4:20 at Hawker Football Centre. CUA looked pretty good against West Canberra. Good bounce back victory for them. Tuggeranong know how to keep their shape, though. So I'm assuming they're going to do something similar, because Canberra United like to keep the ball. They're usually pretty aggressive when they try to keep the ball. So Tuggeranong United are going to look to keep their shape and use the likes of Zoe Terry and Guliamin to push forward when they can. They will probably have more chances than they did against Canberra, Croatia. I'm going to go for a CUA victory here. Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a CUA home victory as well, Matt. I think Tuggeranong United will definitely look to set up similarly to how they did against Canberra, Croatia. Like we mentioned prior, their approach to that game worked for, around 80 minutes. They were into that game until they obviously conceded 4 in the last 10. So I think if they can develop a similar approach to really nullify and frustrate Canberra United Academy, they can look to hit them on the counter attack, and they can potentially get a result from playing that way. I mean, to have the success that they did for a large portion of the game against Canberra, Croatia, albeit they were down 2-0, but in context of how Tuggeranong United have suffered this season and how they're trying to rebuild and come back, I think it's a great sign that they can use to go forward. So I think, yeah, even though they showed positive signs, I still expect Canberra United Academy to get the win, but I think we can expect Tuggeranong United to keep building on the performance that they just showed.
And before we move on to NPL2, Jeremy's predictions were Croatia, with Canberra, Croatia, Wagga City Wanderers, Gungahlin, and CUA. And also, before we move on, I thought we'd bring up the banterous part of the show and
the tips,
and bring up our tips from last week. Michael, not a very good week for us in NPL1.
I was going to say, did I get one right? No.
0.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw the results like over the weekend.
Like Russ is going to tell us when when we have him on for the NPL or NPL 1 and 2.
And I was thinking like
very unpredictable.
Yeah, I think I've got 0 this week, which has been
0 in NPL 1. You fare a little better in NPLW, I'll tell you now. You got 0 in NPL 1. I only got 1 in NPL 1. NPL 1 is becoming the hardest thing to predict.
Yes.
Which is always good for a good laugh. And NPLW, Michael, you stepped up to the occasion and made up for your NPL 1 sufferings. You got 4 out of 4. I got 3 out of 4. Jeremy got 2 out of 4. So the ladder for us in NPL1 is me 4, you 2. The ladder for us in NPLW is me 10, you 9, Jeremy 7.
Yep.
And NPL2, I got 2 credit this week. You got 1. So we're back to being average again in NPL2. I've got 8 and you have 7. But regardless, it's pretty close between everyone here. So,
well, as long as it's close. I mean, it didn't sound like it was obviously a great tipping week, but I think there have been a lot of, maybe not a lot of surprising results, but there have certainly been some very close games that have been tough to separate, especially in NPL 1. So, I mean, we'll obviously get into that later. There was some surprising results here and there. Obviously, that reflected in the shocking tipping week that I had. I mean, not even to get one is poor form by me. So I'll look to bounce back this week and maybe make some more logical picks to build back up my, my leaderboard score. So we'll see what happens.
We certainly will. We start with NPL2, the fans' favorite. It is safe to say the fans' favorite segment so far this season. We start with Wagga City Wanderers going down to Yoogali 5-0. Roddy with 2 goals, Roque with 2 goals, Donadell with a goal. Very good bounce back victory for Yoogali after they lost I believe a similar score. I think it was the same score to O'Connor Knights last week. 5-0. Michael, how did this one play out?
Yeah, like you touched on there, it's a great bounce back result for Yoogali. Picking up a 5-0 win away from home is always sweet. It's a big win for them, getting some points back on the board and some goals in the back of the net after their heavy defeat last week to O'Connor, like you mentioned, Matt. It's very important for the Griffith side to keep a clean sheet as well after the first 2 rounds. It's exactly what it's the sort of reaction that Luke Santolin would have been looking from his side, especially in anticipation for their clash with ANU this weekend. Wagga City Waggers, unfortunately, have yet to find a win so far this season or find the back of the net either, which is concerning. We were saying how this season is going to be difficult for the reigning champions, considering the large amount of departures that they've suffered, and how they are trying to find their feet as a result of that. Next week they face, a side that has not been able to pick up points yet either in Western Molonglo. So that will be a very, very key matchup that we'll delve into a bit later on. But I think it's important to note the fashion in which Yoogali were able to get this victory away from home so that they can continue to build on that going forward. Russ, a great win for Yoogali, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Danny Roach will be happy that Matt's called him Roque. He sounds like a Brazilian.
My apologies.
Yeah, look, I mean, this game was done in 15 minutes, believe it or not. Yoogali came out of the blocks absolutely flying. They were 4 up inside the first 20 minutes or so of the game, and the game was dead as a contest after that. Luke Santolin very wisely took off his main men, preparing them for the FFA Cup game this week after that, which is perhaps why they've eased off on the scoring a little bit. Mason Donadell's penalty rounding it off in the second half. But Calvin Roddy with a couple and Danny Roche with a couple. They're main strikers. They're in good goal-scoring form. It's a good recovery from the previous week where they got absolutely swamped. I think it was by Knights, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yes. And as we know, it's not too far from Yoogali to Griffith. So they're a different outfit when they're at home, in inverted commas, on this occasion. They're big win for them. Lots of goals. They're in good form heading into what is a massive night for them this Friday in the FFA Cup when they welcome Tuggeranong United, expecting a big crowd at the Solomon Stadium for that one, their first home FFA Cup tie ever. And we'll be there with Bar TV and Tuggeranong United. I can tell you, are probably going to be a little bit depleted for that one. So, cup set could be on the cards.
We'll have to wait and see. Matt, anything you want to add before we move on to the next matchup?
I mean, it is going to be a little bit tougher for the NPL2 match to be postponed, but they will be at home regardless. But let's not forget, after their match against Tuggeranong United, they are playing ANU, who currently sit top of the NPL ladder. We'll mention that in a little bit, but I think that win is important for both matches that they're heading into this week. Because last season they only lost one match, I believe, before the finals last season, and it wasn't by a big scoreline. to get completely flattered by O'Connor like that. This will do a lot better, for their momentum. More importantly, heading forward, especially since it was quite a close game in terms of the score against Western Molonglo in that first round for Yoogali. So I think it's very important for them to pick up a sort of win like this heading into two massive matches for them heading into this week. Wagga City Wanderers, we've mentioned it before. Unfortunately for them, they've still yet to score a goal this season in the regular campaign. They, of course, defeated the Brindis. So they'll be looking forward to the FFA Cup as well and hoping that they can pull another cup set. And yeah, so both sides so far haven't, between them and Monaro, both haven't won yet this season. So they'll both be looking at it from similar points of view from other sides of the fence, despite the difference between leagues. But yeah, Wagga City Wanderers it's still gonna take a while to see the best of them, only because of just the way they need. There's a lot of work that needs to go into replacing the amount of players that their first starters that they've lost in that regard. All right.
I'll tell you, actually, Matt, as well, Calvin Roddy played in the reserves in that game as well. Started the first grade game, scored 2 goals and an assist in the first 15 minutes. And by the 20-minute mark, was sat in the stand eating a hot dog. So it's not a bad afternoon's work, is it?
Certainly not. All right, Michael, what is our next matchup?
So we had Western Molonglo at home to the Brindabella Blues. The Brindis picking up a big win away from home, winning 4-1. Western Molonglo's Reckford getting on the score sheet for the home side, whereas for the visitors, Schaefer scoring a hat-trick and Russo on the score sheet for the visiting team as well. Matt, first win of the season for the Brindis. I just touched on how big of a win it is for them and Zoran Glavinich's team going forward. And Schaefer, he's proving to be a handful up front, isn't he?
He certainly has a hat-trick today. He scored 3 goals before this, 2 in the first match, I believe, and 1 in the last round. They've looked very good. Russ, as mentioned on commentary as well, whenever we've mentioned the scores during the matches, they've looked really good going forward. The majority of this campaign has just sort of been about keeping it at the back, keeping it together at the back. Even when I was talking to Zoran Glavinic pre-season, he talked about how he really wants to improve defensively. But clearly they've improved attacking-wise compared to last season. That's without question. I mean, Schaefer, I believe he's the top scorer now in NPL2, if I'm not mistaken, with this hat-trick. He's been on fire this season. And yeah, so the Brindis will be happy to get one on the board, considering from all accounts, even last week against 5-2 against White Eagles, whenever they got chances, they still scored 2 goals. And then they still scored 2 goals against Queanbeyan as well. So they'll be happy to see that their attacking efforts has been rewarded with the win. Western Molonglo, on the other hand, they did have, I was told they did create more chances than they did in their previous, or at least in their previous game against Queanbeyan City, which is a positive because they weren't able to create too many against Queanbeyan City side that was very determined on that day. Ned Jeans will be looking to take the little positives that they've found from each game so far and try and culminate that result in a victory next week against Wagga City, who have yet, like we mentioned, yet to score a goal. I think they're still missing Lowy El-Bushi, sorry if I got that name wrong, but I saw him in preseason, the FFA Cup against Woden-Weston. He looked very, very good. He's probably one of the more creative players from that center, that CAM role. I think when he comes back as well, that's going to be a very positive for them. Manda came back. He wasn't there against Queanbeyan City. Ned James is very high on him. So they'll be trying to take the positives from each game that they've played and put it together and try and get a victory this weekend. But yeah, in terms of their performance, I was told that it was not as harsh as the scoreline suggests in terms of Western Molonglo. Russ?
We did Brindabella in an FFA Cup game, as you're well aware, and Curtis Schaefer now has 8 goals in 4 matches, including that FFA Cup game, which is a phenomenal achievement so far. But you can't teach pace. So one thing you can't teach, you've either got it or you haven't. And if you've got pace in NPL2, coming up against more experienced players who perhaps are a little bit older than you are, then you're going to cause them issues. And Brindabella have got some lightning fast attackers. We saw it this season, and Curtis Schaefer is just having a field day at the moment. If he can keep it up, they'll surprise some teams and score plenty of goals. But he's getting ably supported by his teammate Zach Lawrence as well. Hasn't got on the score sheet yet, but he's been probably in the best form I've seen Zach Lawrence in a long, long time. And it's a really good result for them, 4-1 away. Feel a bit for Western Molonglo. They're built. It's almost a counter opposite to what they had last year, where they started really solidly defensively, but were scoring, and now it's the other way around. They're struggling to score, and they are shifting goals. But they have got new players in, and like you say, some of their key absentees will be back, and they'll put this one down to one of those occasions where the opposition just took the chances that were given to them. And credit to Zoran Glavinic and his team. And if Kurdiševa keeps scoring, they might keep upsetting teams, and you never know where they might end up.
It's going to be interesting to see both teams moving forward. Michael, are we ready to move on to the next matchup? All right, Michael, you know a bit about this fixture in your from when you used to play for White Eagles in State League. White Eagles got the big derby victory over O'Connor Knights 2-1. Al-Nuwasir and McCarthy with the goals for White Eagles, and McCarran with the goal for O'Connor Knights. White Eagles scoring pretty late in this one to get the big victory, Michael.
Yeah, indeed. It's a massive result in any derby to get a win, and that's what White Eagles did, especially away from home as well. It's a big result, even though it's only just 3 games into the season. They came from behind as well to defeat O'Connor, which makes the victory even that much sweeter. The result leaves White Eagles tied first, with ANU trailing them on goal difference by 1 goal. So from all accounts, a very good performance from White Eagles, who came out, after conceding first, like I just mentioned, they came out and played with a lot of intensity and went out on the front foot to gain, a decent strength hold on the game, to the point where they scored 2 unanswered goals to obviously win the game. And Steve Forshaw will be very happy with this result. And most importantly, it gives them more momentum heading into another tough matchup against Queanbeyan City this weekend, which we'll touch on. O'Connor themselves will obviously be disappointed to lose at home, especially to White Eagles. You never like losing a derby game. I don't know if you lads have played in a derby game before, but you definitely don't want to be losing. You don't want to be losing those sort of games. That they can sting a little bit, but it's important how much they use this experience and bounce back, because we talk about how keen O'Connor is to really push and make that NPL1 promotion. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty more results similar to this over the course of the NPL2 season. Russ, a great win for White Eagles and your good friend Steve Forshaw. A fantastic display, considering they're away from home, and we talk about how strong O'Connor have certainly looked to start this season.
Yeah, they've got a really good team, O'Connor Knights. I think anyone that goes to O'Connor and gets 3 points is going to be very, very happy. Miro and Alex have got a good group of footballers there, and I think White Eagles will be extremely happy with 3 points. Ed McCarthy's goal coming a couple of minutes from the end of the match, and a good one too. Decent finish, and McCarran at O'Connor now scored in 3 successive games as well, so he's got his eye in. So it was everything you want a derby game to be. I've seen a fair bit of the footage, and there were some crunching tackles that were going in, no quarter arse, but it wasn't nasty. It was just proper tackles and players picking each other up and getting on with it afterwards. The crowd were good there. There was noisy, but very well behaved as well, which was fantastic. And it's exactly what you want a derby game to be: full of drama, full of action, full of crunching tackles, and 3 cracking goals as well. And this time White Eagles come out on top, but next time could very well be the Knights.
Matt, any thoughts and feelings on this one? A very, very entertaining game. We've talked about how entertaining NPL2 has already provided to be, but this just really sort of encapsulates how strong this competition is, and anything can happen, especially in these derby games, like Russ mentioned. The fans, the style of play, the crunching tackles, just the intensity of being in that sort of derby environment as well.
Yeah, and Russ mentioned the footage. I saw one of the footage online. One of the goals, I think it was White Eagles' goal, was it? It was a brilliant strike from sort of outside the box. I believe it was the last.
That was McCarthy's.
That was McCarthy's. Yeah, that was an absolutely terrific goal. Bit of good old handheld footage there from Kayleen enclosed.
Always makes it look incredibly good, doesn't it?
It does,
because
it shakes the camera, especially when there must have been a White Eagles supporter. I think that was doing it, getting all excited when they scored that one. In general, though, O'Connor, they looked, from all accounts, they looked pretty lively when they scored. They trusted themselves defensively afterwards, and apparently it was mostly White Eagles in that second half trying to come back and get that victory. For White Eagles, they've really improved over the last month or so. When we saw them in preseason, we'll talk about how they didn't have that great a preseason, but it is preseason. They're looking really, really good now. And for them to push O'Connor Knights like that, who they were in the first 2 rounds, are probably one of the better sides in the competition in terms of results and in terms of the way they played. So O'Connor Knights will be disappointed that they let that goal, lead slip. But they'll be looking to bounce back next week against the Brindis, while this sets up White Eagles perfectly against Queanbeyan City, who we're going to mention didn't get the result they would have liked on the weekend against ANU. All right. So next up, Michael, what is the matchup?
Yeah, so next matchup and the final matchup in this one for round 3, NPL2, was Queanbeyan City at home to ANU. We talked about how much of a great game this was going to be, as well as the game that we just previously dissected. It was Queanbeyan City up against ANU, and ANU coming away with a valuable away win against Gabby Wilkes' Queanbeyan team. Peterkin providing the sole goal that separated the 2 teams in this game. Matt, a big win for ANU, against a team that just has so much firepower in Queanbeyan City. And last week, I remember we discussed how much attacking threat Queanbeyan has and how they just score goals in abundance. But, I mean, ANU obviously did a fantastic job to not even let them score one. They got a clean sheet and the victory as well. So all around, ANU must be absolutely pleased with the way in which they approached this game and got the 3 points.
Yeah, Adam Contabadero will be very happy with how his side performed. He clearly went out with a game plan to try and nullify Queanbeyan's attacking threats, even if that was at the behest of their own attacking abilities. They knew they had to be very resolute in their defensive performance against Queanbeyan City, because if they got a hold of any of the footage that Queanbeyan City played against Western Molonglo, I haven't seen a match like that where one side created so many chances. It could have been way more than 5. I was very, very impressed with Queanbeyan that day. So clearly ANU had seen some of that footage and gone, or seen them play just in preseason and go, okay, we're going to have a different sort of approach to this matchup. And the match might have been a little scrappy at times. Queanbeyan City had the majority of the chances. ANU didn't have too many from what I've been told, but when they did, they capitalized on it. Naturally, ANU sat back a little bit more, tried to nullify Queanbeyan, and it worked, because this is a team that we all know can score. We all know the Wilkes love to try and put goals in the back of the net at the behest of their own, sometimes at the behest of their own defensive game. So Queanbeyan City will be a little disappointed that they, suffered this defeat, considering it is their first matchup at home this round. But yeah, it just wasn't their day at the office. Whenever they got their chances, they weren't able to convert them, and ANU just made it a very, very tough match for them. But I really liked what I heard in terms of ANU this season, in terms of the way they're playing, because you always love it when you get to see a team that has different sort of game plans. And clearly, I think this will help ANU moving forward to have a different game plan when they need it. They can sort of pull a rabbit out of the hat and say, all right, even though we're usually a ball team that loves to control possession and attack, but now they have that sort of game plan where they can pull a rabbit out of the hat and play this sort of rugged defensive performance to nullify an attacking team like Queanbeyan City. But expect Queanbeyan City to bounce back. If it's not this weekend, next weekend. We all know the sort of power they have and the sort of passion that the Wilkes bring to any side that they coach. They're going to be raring the boys to go next week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens next week. But Queanbeyan City is still going to be one of the favourites this season, despite this loss. And ANU, this is a statement victory, even though we all know they're one of the historic sides. Not a lot of people were talking about ANU in the off season, so this is a statement victory for them, saying, "Hey, we're going to be in and around this top position for the promotion contenders." Russ?
Tactically, Adam Contabadero got it spot on the weekend, and they've reaped the rewards with 3 points thanks to a goal from Rowan Peterkin. Queanbeyan City, when you play them, they love unstructured football. They've got some real quality players that can take you apart if you give them the space and and unstructured insofar as that, they're not limited by where they're going to be. So if you can keep yourself nice and compact and you can keep your team organised, you can frustrate them. And I think that's what ANU did on the weekend. As you said, it was at the to the detriment of their own attacking threat that they often have, but they still had enough on the break to get the winning goal. And I think credit to Adam and his coaching staff at ANU for getting that spot on. Now, Queanbeyan City, they'll roll with the punches with this one, and they'll be straight back to it next week. And again, they'll play the same way and try and score as many goals as they can, because that's what they do.
It's certainly going to be interesting in that regard. All right. Do you have any comments on this match, Michael, before we move on to the predictions?
I think both of you raised, the key highlights and takeaways for this encounter. I think one of my thoughts is that I think anyone that would have seen that game in terms of how ANU set up, where they nullified, Queanbeyan's attacking threat and, were able to snag a goal and get the win, it sort of sets a blueprint on how you can best approach a team like Queanbeyan City, who we mentioned love to attack. So I think this result sort of, highlights and showcases that you can put a blueprint in place and a tactical strategy in place in terms of being a little more compact against Queanbeyan, really shutting off the spaces for them to use their pace and attacking threat, and more or less just hit them on the counter attack, where you can potentially look to expose areas that they leave in behind. So I believe that it's a great win for ANU. And we'll just see now how teams are going to set up against Queanbeyan after this result. I know that Queanbeyan obviously have the firepower to break down any defense, but I mean, if you have that blueprint in place where you're defensively minded and you're structured and you're focused in and around that area, then you can achieve success. So we'll see what happens going forward. So that'll just lead into now doing the round 4 predictions. We've got Western Molonglo up against Wagga City Wanderers, Saturday, May 1st, 2:15 at Woden Park enclosed. I'm going to go for a Western Molonglo victory there in Woden. I believe that given the state of both clubs and the results that they've endured so far this season, I do think that this is where Western Molonglo have the best chance to sort of kickstart their years. So I'm going to go for a home win for Western. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to go for the same, a home victory for Western Molonglo. This will probably be a tough matchup. It'll probably be cagey at times as well. I mean, both sides, let's be honest, both sides will be looking at this and thinking that they can get their first points of the season. The only issue, I guess, for the Wanderers is, we've mentioned it before, but they haven't been able to score yet. And we saw sort of how that played on teams like, for example, the West Canberra Wanderers last season, when they weren't able to score for the first 4 games, I think it was. And then it was just sort of like a pressure that they didn't need. And once they were able to break the duck, they were able to break the duck. But in that regard, I think Western Molonglo have shown a little more going forward so far this season than the Wanderers. So I'm going to go for Western Molonglo. Any comments on this one?
The big ask for Wagga City Wanderers to back up after Wednesday night at the Riverside, to come back to Canberra only a couple of days later and play again against a team that's hanging for some points as well. So yeah, it's a big ask for Dave Leonard and his team to back that up. See how they come out of Wednesday first, but yeah, it's going to be difficult for them.
All right, Michael, next up.
We've got Brindabella Blues coming off that fantastic victory up against O'Connor Knights this Saturday, May 1st at 4:45 at Ipen Park. This one's going to be tough, just based on the fact of how well the Brindis played in round 3, with Schaefer, scoring a hat-trick and carrying that momentum over to continue his good start to the season. I do think that O'Connor are going to bounce back, though, from that White Eagles defeat. I think they'll be motivated to get themselves back on the right track in terms of, it's tough losing a derby, and you've got this sort of pent up sort of aggression in a way where you're so eager to just put that result behind you, and you do that by going out the next week and getting yourself back in the win column. So I think that's what I expect O'Connor Knights to do with the quality that they have. So I'm going to go for an away victory for O'Connor.
Look, I agree. I think O'Connor just going to nip this one, but I think it's going to be very, very close. We could see a lot of goals in this one as well, despite O'Connor being relatively strong defensively. We saw White Eagles sort of try and even though Schaefer still ended up scoring and Brindabella still scored twice against White Eagles. From all reports, White Eagles did quite well to sort of nullify the attacking presence for a decent amount of the game from Brindabella Blues. So if O'Connor could do something similar to sort of stop the pace of the Brindies, then they might be able to, get a victory here. But in saying that, Brindies are going to put up a fight. I just think O'Connor have a little too much experience in this one, and especially in the big matches. And you mentioned how they're going to be raring to go after losing that derby. It's going to be a close one, but I'm going to go for O'Connor. Any thoughts on this one, Russ?
Yeah, Blues will fancy themselves. I think they've got a lot of pace to cause O'Connor issues. However, O'Connor have got a lot of quality footballers in that side. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I think there'll be plenty of goals in that one. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a similar outcome to when they played White Eagles a couple of weeks ago. Brindley will score goals, but I think they'll concede them as well.
Absolutely. And next we've got the big one, Queanbeyan City up against Canberra White Eagles, another derby for NPL2. We've got that at 5:30 p.m., but that might change to 3:30 at
more than likely, I would imagine it's going to be.
Okay. At High Street, Saturday, May 1st. What a game this will be. I'm sort of thinking, will White Eagles be able to replicate another big away derby victory? I'm going to sit on the fence with this result. I think it's going to be a draw. I think they're going to cancel each other out. I think they're both quality sides with great players. I think it's going to be tough for them to break each other down. Obviously, Queanbeyan being kept at 0 against ANU, they'll be looking to change that and get on the score sheet this week, especially against White Eagles with the thoughts and feelings that are attached to a derby. You can expect absolute fireworks on the pitch, and the fans going absolutely crazy for that one as well. So that's going to be a great game to watch. But I'm definitely going to go for a draw here. I think Queanbeyan's going to perform a bit better than what they did against ANU. And I just can't quite see White Eagles being able to pick up a victory against O'Connor away from home and then a victory against Queanbeyan City away from home. It would be two amazing back-to-back results. Not saying that they can't do it, but I just see this contest as a draw.
Yeah, Michael, you won't like this one, but I've agreed with you for the third time now on this one. I'm going to go for the draw because for me, this matchup.
He's just writing down what you're saying, mate.
Yeah.
So at this point, for me, it's all about how a White Eagle is going to approach this game. We know how Queanbeyan City is going to approach it. It's all about how a White Eagle is going to approach this game. And at the moment, despite their improvement defensively, White Eagles, it's safe to say, so far haven't been as strong as ANU, for example, defensively. We know they can score goals, though. So it's going to be all about how are they going to set up in this matchup. But I'm going to go for a draw. I think this could be very high scoring. Or it could be the opposite, but I think it will be high scoring. Sorry, just going to cover all bases here. I just realized how ridiculous that sounded. My apologies. But yeah, all right, high scoring. I'm going to go for that one instead. Being like that. But regardless, I'm going to sit on the fence in this one. But like I said, the key factor for me is how Canberra White Eagles are going to approach this one. And yeah, we've mentioned it'll most likely be 3:30, but the reason why we mentioned 5:30 is because it hasn't been changed on the website yet. Russ, any comments on this one before we move on?
Well, to be honest, if you're in and around Canberra and you love football, why not go to High Street at 3:30 and watch Queanbeyan City White Eagles, then nip in your car over the road to Riverside to watch Monaro versus Canberra, Croatia? I mean, you're not going to get two better games in Canberra this weekend, and they're being played a goal kick apart, really.
Down the road.
Just literally down the road and around the corner. So I'll probably do that myself. I might get there for the first half of Queanbeyan City versus White Eagles, and then nip off to the commentary over the road. I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, these two sides have both got ambitions of being in NPL1 next year, and whilst it's a long season, we talked about it in the O'Connor game, it's just giving you that little bit of an impetus if you can get a result. Michael's made a very pertinent point, really hard for Queanbeyan City to back up again, White Eagles, to back up again, go to both your rivals in consecutive weeks and get a result. It's a bit like asking, Manchester United to go to City, then Liverpool in consecutive weeks. It's really hard to do. And it's going to be a great occasion. I think we'll all enjoy it from the football point of view. It's going to be a good result. I think it's going to be a draw as well. I think if I was going to tip 3-3.
If keyword. Yeah. All right. Lastly, we've got Yoogali at home to ANU Sunday, May 2nd, 1 p.m. at Solomad Stadium. In this one, I'm going to go for an ANU victory. I think they've built up a lot of confidence from that Queanbeyan City result, I should say, where they got the victory there and played fantastically well. I expect them to carry that over against Yoogali. So I'm going to go for an ANU away victory.
Yeah, it looks like we're 4 for 4 this week, Michael. So if we're both going down, we're going down together. If we both we're sharing the spoils together, it seems. Yeah, look, very impressive victory, like we said, for ANU. Yoogali, though, you're going to see the best performances at home this season or around the Riverina area. Very, very strong. That way, there's no issues with travel. They're all going to be there. So I think we're going to see an interesting matchup. But I think ANU, like I mentioned before, they've shown they can throw a rabbit out of the hat. I'm intrigued to see how they approach this one. But we all know they can play both sides of the ball. And but Yoogali, expect them to have a good display. But I guess the big question is, I just remembered it now, they do have that matchup against Tuggeranong 2 days before. So how are they going to back up in that regard? But regardless, I think ANU are going to win because they've just shown that they can play both sides of the ball this season. And they probably have been the most consistent when it comes to playing both sides of the ball this season in the opening 3 rounds. Russ, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the key is exactly what you said then. It depends what
Almost
happens.
forgot.
Depends what happens on Friday night.
Yeah.
I mean, they might still be out on Sunday morning if they get a result. So it might play into ANU's hands. So, I mean, if they play on Friday night against Tuggeranong, let's just say worst case scenario for them, it goes to extra time, it goes to penalties. It's a long evening for them. So then if they do win, they're obviously going to then go and have a bit of a celebration because you don't win FFA Cup games very often. Don't get to a semi-finals of the FFA Cup very often, especially if you're an NPL2 team. So that's going to have a huge bearing on the outcome of this game. Also, whether the game still goes ahead. I'm assuming it is. I haven't heard anything different. So it's going to be a good match to watch. I think two sides that are really prepared to go out and play football, and Solomad's got a decent-sized surface there. So, expect some goals, and the result will depend on what happens on Friday.
It is certainly going to be an interesting one. All right, that's it from us today, guys. And we're going to be looking forward to a very interesting week of football. Russ, do you want to mention the week you've got in football? I saw your Facebook status before we started this, so you've got a bit of an interesting week. Yeah,
before I do, I'd just like to give a shout out to our Centurions this week. David Jenkins, Monaro, Panthers, Isosro Heki, Canberra Olympic, bring up 100 games and 50 games in the Women's Premier League for Ella Brown of Gungahlin United and Jem Bissett of Canberra, Croatia. So congratulations to those four and bring out their milestones. There's plenty more coming up this week as well. I'll keep you updated each week on those. That was great. Yeah, this week it's a bit of a busy one. Got the book launch tomorrow in Glebe up in Sydney. Come back for Wednesday night live on Bar TV, Monaro Panthers versus Wagga City Wanderers FFA Cup. Friday, the long trip to Griffith, Yoogali versus Tuggeranong in the FFA Cup as well. Saturday evening, Monaro Panthers versus Canberra, Croatia in NPL. And Sunday, up at Gungahlin enclosed, the Women's National Premier League, Gungahlin versus Belconnen United. So 4 games in 5 days for myself, and I'm really looking forward to it. They're going to be 4 cracking contests, and can't wait for it all to come round.
So a bit of K's on the car this week, Russ.
There'll be a few K's going up to Sydney and back, which would be nice. And I'm really looking forward to that. Andy Burnell's just sent me a message actually saying Adam Peacock's picked up a copy and looked through it and gone, what a book. So again, shameless
Fantastic.
plug part 2. Go buy yourself a copy. It's available on Amazon. It's available from Fair Play Books and all good booksellers. And if they don't stock it, they're not a good bookseller. And we're hoping they're hoping to have there be some signed copies. And keep an eye out if you're in Canberra as well, because we will be having a launch here as well. And hopefully not just about the book. There'll be a Q&A with Andy through myself and a few other things going on. We might have an auction happening, and just a good chance for the football community to get together and celebrate one of our own and give him the credit that he deserves. But really looking forward to the FA Cup. Love FA Cup weeks. We are in the process at the moment as well of trying to see if we can score some sponsorship to get the Women's Federation Cup semi-finals streamed live on Bar TV Sports as well. So if you're interested in women's football or football in Canberra in general, and you want to sponsor that to make that happen so we can bring those 2 matches to you live on Bar TV Sports, please get in touch through myself, through Facebook, or however, hit me up at the ground, or through Michael or Matt if you know them, and they'll pass on the messages. And thanks very much for having me again. Really appreciated it, and apologies for my tardiness getting here late.
It's all right. Pleasure having you as always. Russ, your knowledge is impeccable of Canberra football as we all know it. Michael, any last comments before we head off?
No, I think another great week of football on the horizon. Russ, you've got a lot of commentary to do. You've obviously got the release of Andy Manal's book as well, which will be fantastic just for Canberra football in general and just the Canberra community. So that's fantastic, and hopefully with the Women's Federation Cup semis, we can get the sponsorship there, so we can broadcast those games as well. So exciting times ahead. It's going to be another great week of football,
and it's much cheaper than you actually think it might be to broadcast a game live on Bar TV Sports.
There we go. Yeah, I did see that little interplay on Facebook that led to that. So it's great to see that just fans in general just very
in an ideal world, we'd be able to cover everything. We can't, obviously, because we're crying out for more commentators as well. You guys, you've been doing a great job, Matt and Jeremy McGann as well, and
cameras in general.
Cameras and
they do other
equipment.
Sports.
There's all sorts of stuff going on, but they're very supportive by TV, and I mean, especially with midweek stuff. If there's matches on in midweek, even if there's NPL2 games switched to midweek, if we can get the sponsorship to cover them, we certainly will, because midweek's a great time to watch football.
It certainly is. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for listening. The response, as always, has been fantastic, especially for the premiere launches for the Facebook's page and the shares and the comments, and everyone just and the people that come up to me and just have a chat about it when I'm at the games. It's greatly appreciated. We greatly appreciate all the support, and it's great to see that everyone's just so into this season, whether it's Bar TV or the podcast or the book launch or anything Canberra football. It seems to just be getting bigger and bigger from last year to last year before COVID to after COVID to this year. It just keeps growing. So thank you very much, everberry, and we'll see you next week for
quarter of a century episodes as well. So 25 episodes, quarter of the way there. So we need to bring up those triple digits.
I'm sure we will.
We will get there. So thank you very much, everybody, and see you for episode 26.